They fire me publicly. Then their company started falling apart. Someone sent me this story the other day, and man, I've been turning it over in my head ever since. It's one of those real-life tales that feels like it could have happened to anyone who's ever poured their heart into a job. I'm just going to tell it the way it came to me, straight through like we're sitting on the porch swapping stories. Here it goes. I still remember exactly how the room smelled that morning. Coffee, old carpet, and this other thing I couldn't quite name back then, like the quiet end of something you weren't done with yet. Those fluorescent lights in the conference room always flickered a bit, just enough to make the whole place feel slightly off-kilter, like you were stuck in a dream that hadn't quite turned into a nightmare. There were 11 of us in there that day. 11 people I'd worked alongside for years, shared lunches, cracked the same dumb jokes in the break room, lent out my phone charger 100 times, even had them jump on my daughter's virtual baby shower when the pandemic locked everything down. 11 folks. And not one of them could look me in the eye when Marcus Holt strode in and pointed straight at me like I was some old desk that needed hauling out. "This is being addressed right now," he said, to the room, not to me, about me. "Before I get any further, I need you to know something. I'm not the revenge type. Never have been. My grandmother drilled it into me every Sunday after church. Leave the settling to God and the truth. I carried those words with me for 38 years, through rough relationships, lousy bosses, all kinds of bad breaks. I never once sat around plotting against anybody. But sometimes the truth handles the settling on its own. And watching it unfold, that could be one of the most powerful things you'll ever see. This is what happened when I got fired in front of my whole team, how my name got dragged through the mud at a company I'd helped grow from 40 people to almost 400, and how, bit by bit, brick by brick, everything Marcus Holt built on top of other folks' hard work started quietly coming apart at the seams. I joined Arkwell Solutions back in the spring, nearly 9 years ago now. It was a solid mid-sized data analytics outfit back then. Nothing flashy, but the kind of place where people stuck around for decades because the work felt meaningful and the culture didn't suck the life out of you. They brought me in as a senior operations analyst, and within 2 years, I'd stepped into a director role, handling team setups, client relationships, and what the founders like to call the machine, all those behind-the-scenes processes that kept the whole operation humming without anyone really noticing. That's the thing about ops work. Do it right, and nobody sees it. Let it break, and everyone loses their minds. For 7 solid years, I was the guy making sure panic never had a set in. Then Marcus Holt showed up 4 years ago, right after the founders sold a controlling stake to some investment outfit out of Atlanta. He came in as the new chief operating officer. So yeah, technically he was over me. I didn't hold a grudge at first. Companies change. I showed him the ropes, handed over all my documentation, introduced him to every client contact I'd built up over the years. What I didn't see coming was that Marcus wasn't there to build anything. He was there to claim it. You know the type in corporate life? I've run into a few. Masters of proximity. They cozy up to the right people, parrot the right lines, and snatch credit for outcomes they had nothing to do with. They don't do the actual work. They just polish the appearance of it. Marcus was scary good at that game. In 6 months, he was standing in front of the board presenting data I'd pulled together, systems I designed, and client insights I'd earned through years of real relationship building. He did it with such smooth confidence that sometimes even I blinked and wondered for a second if maybe he'd been the one behind it all. I should have pushed back sooner. I know that now. But I was raised to keep my head down, work hard, and trust that the truth would speak up eventually. Grandma's voice in my ear again. For a while, I really believed the work would look after me. Turns out I was dead wrong. The first real warning sign hit about a year after Marcus arrived. They pulled me off the Meridian account, our biggest client, and said it was to streamline communications. My replacement? Derek Webb, some guy who'd only been around 8 months and had never handled anything close to that size. I asked Marcus straight up why the change happened without talking to me. He gave me that warm but closed door smile of his and said, "This is about growth, not judgment. Think of it as space for even bigger things." Bigger things. I actually wrote that down. Still not sure why. Over the next few months, the pattern got clearer. Projects I started got handed off before they were done. My name quietly disappeared from docs going up to leadership. My access to share drives got cut back for restructuring reasons. Every time I raised a flag, the answers were calm, reasonable, and totally hollow. I was being erased, slow, professional, and deniable. Then I ran into Candace. Candace Reyes had been there even longer than me, almost 12 years, running client analytics with this quiet intensity everybody respected. We'd always been friendly, but not tight. That changed one Thursday night in November when I spotted her by the parking garage elevator, staring at her phone with a look I knew too well. I'd seen it in my own mirror for months. "They moved your team under Derek?" I asked. She glanced up. "How'd you know?" "Lucky guess," I said. We grabbed coffee across the street and talked for 2 hours straight. What spilled out flipped everything I thought I knew about Arkwell. Candace had been keeping records, not in some paranoid way, just because she was organized like that. Emails, calendar notes, internal memos showing a clear, coordinated push to shift power away from the old guard who'd been there before Marcus and toward his own hand-picked layer that answered only to him. She slid her phone across the table and showed me an email chain. Marcus at the top. Subject line looked harmless. Q4 staffing adjustments, but the body was cold. There was a list of names. Mine was fourth. Next to it, in his words, transition complete by end of Q1. Resistance expected, but manageable. I read it twice. Looked at Candace. "How long have you had this?" I asked. 3 weeks, she said. Didn't know what to do with it. Resistance expected, but manageable. 9 years of my life boiled down to 5 words. That one hit different. The next few weeks were rough. Anger, sure, the heavy kind that sits in your chest like a rock. But deeper than that was this strange grief. You give almost a decade to a place, miss dinners, work weekends, solve midnight problems nobody will ever know about, and then realize the company you thought had your back was already drafting the papers to toss you out. It doesn't feel like losing a job. It feels like finding out a long relationship was fake the whole time. I started thinking careful. Not revenge. I wasn't there yet. More like protection. What did I actually have? What could I prove? Candace and I started meeting off-site quiet. We pulled in 2 others who'd seen the same patterns. Phil Okafor, the compliance guy who was meticulous to the point it drove you a little crazy, and Tessa Briggs, a sharp younger woman who'd come from a competitor and whose ideas Marcus had been parading in front of the board as his own big vision. Tessa was 29 and carried this controlled fury that made her seem completely calm on the surface. She was the first one to say what we'd all been circling. He's going to fire us all eventually. Question is whether we walk out with nothing or with the truth in our hands. Phil pushed his glasses up. Define truth. Documentation, Tessa said. Everything we built that he took credit for. Put together right, it tells a hell of a story. To who? I asked. She paused. Depends on the story we want to tell. That talk was on a Tuesday. By Friday, I was standing in that conference room getting fired in front of everybody. I don't know what Marcus thought I'd do. Cry? Stay silent? Sign whatever HR pushed across the table while everyone watched? What he got was calm. I just stood there. He gave his little speech about strategic realignment, how it wasn't personal, how he appreciated my contributions. Made it sound like a gentle send-off. I looked around at those 11 faces. Some uncomfortable, some scared, a few of the newer ones blank in that way people get when they've been coached to look blank. I picked up my bag, buttoned my jacket, said I understand, because at that point I really did, clear as day, like seeing the wires behind a magic trick. Then I walked out. Later I heard Marcus was telling people I'd been let go for performance issues. Dropped it casually in meetings, made it part of the official line. That was his first big mistake. See, Arkwell's whole reputation rested on something I'd spent 3 years building. The Meridian Protocol, named after our first big client it worked for. The idea was mine, the build was mine, the training docs were mine. Only version where it belonged to Marcus was the one he kept spinning. And I had everything. Years of emails, dated designs, version histories, original presentations with my name still in the metadata. Handwritten notes I'd photographed and backed up in 3 places. I guess I'd been the type to keep records without even knowing why. First 3 weeks after getting fired, I stayed quiet. No social media rants, no angry calls, no emails. Went home, spent real time with family, slept through the night for the first time in years. Then I sat down with Phil, Tessa, and Candace. She got let go 2 weeks later, just like we figured, and we started putting it all together. Not exactly a lawsuit, more like a mirror. We were just going to hold it up so the right people, clients, press, investors, the board, could see what had really been going on. Phil was a beast at it. That compliance brain of his had tracked every time Marcus presented the Meridian Protocol without giving credit. Approval chains, receipts, the works. We took it to a lawyer, Rachel Estevez, a sharp employment attorney. After 2 hours going through our stuff, she set the papers down and said carefully, "You understand what this shows, right?" I thought I did. It shows a clear, documented pattern of stealing credit and misleading clients and shareholders. This isn't just disgruntled employees. This is serious. Tessa leaned in. "So, what can we actually do?" Rachel looked at all of us. "A lot. How patient are you?" The thing about a company running on borrowed shine instead of real substance is that eventually it has to deliver. Marcus rode the high for that first quarter after I left. The Meridian Protocol still worked because the foundation I built was strong. Good systems last a while even without their creator. He wowed the board, landed new clients. From the outside, Arkwell looked fine. But Candace still had ears inside. 12 years of trust doesn't vanish overnight. People talked to her in bits and pieces. What she heard wasn't good. The protocol was starting to strain without proper upkeep. Derek was fumbling the big account in ways the client could see. Marcus's big restructuring had ripped out too much know-how, and now the machine was missing pieces nobody knew how to find. Then the original Meridian client sent a formal notice of concern. I heard it from Candace first, then saw hints in an industry newsletter a few weeks later. 2 weeks after that, another client put their renewal on review. Marcus started showing cracks. Candace said, "That anxious vibe when the polished image starts flaking off." That's when Rachel called. "The board's been contacted," she told me. "Not by us." "By who?" "Someone from the investment group." An inside person flagged misrepresented stuff in an investor deck. They brought in an independent auditor. I sat down hard. "How do you know?" "Because the auditor's firm reached out. They saw my name in the flag docs. They want to talk to you." I sat in my kitchen a long time after that, coffee going cold, watching my daughter draw at the table and chatter to herself. Normal life right there, while this bigger will kept turning underneath. I told Rachel I'd meet them. The auditors were careful, professional, asking sharp questions over 3 meetings. Tessa brought her physical binder. Every project she'd touched, time-stamped original drafts. When the lead auditor opened it and started reading, he went quiet for a full 10 minutes. "These presentations," he said finally, pointing at a section, "were listed under Mr. Holt in the Q3 investor report." "Yes," Tessa said. "And these are your originals, predating his by 8 to 14 months. Another long silence. "We'll need copies of all this." Things moved slow after that, the way real consequences usually do. Months of reviews, board meetings we weren't in, lawyer back and forth. There was even a 6-week stretch in spring where nothing seemed to happen, and I'll admit I started doubting whether any of it would stick. Then a call came from someone still inside Arkwell. Name stays private. Quiet voice telling me there'd been an emergency board meeting. Marcus was on administrative leave. The investors had frozen decisions until the audit wrapped. Almost as an afterthought, "The board asked about you. Wondered if you'd consult on stabilizing Meridian. The new team can't figure out the back end." I didn't say anything at first. "What did you tell them?" I finally asked. I said I'd pass it along. Here's the part people always ask about. I didn't go back. Not out of bitterness, and not because I wanted the place to burn. There are decent people there with bills and careers on the line. But I couldn't walk back and like nothing happened. What they did wasn't just business. It was personal. You don't easily shake the feeling that your name, your years of work, your real contributions got wiped and replaced while 11 people sat there and stayed silent. What I did tell the board was this. I'd give them everything needed to understand the Meridian system, docs, maps, notes, as a paid consultation that actually reflected the value, with my name attached publicly and permanently going forward. They agreed. 3 months later, Marcus Holt resigned. Official statement talked about pursuing other opportunities and mutual decision. corporate code before we showed him the door. Clients got full disclosures and better terms. I was in the room for some of those meetings, name on the agenda this time. Tessa started her own consulting firm not long after, named after that first project Marcus had claimed. She's got 5 solid clients and a waiting list now. Phil landed at a bigger compliance role where his filing habits make him a hero. Candace left corporate life and teaches analytics at a community college. She texts me every time a student gets their first job, 3 last month. Me? I'm at a desk I picked, doing work I shaped, for people who know exactly whose name is on it. I think about my grandmother a lot. She'd probably say the truth did what it was always going to do. I didn't create it. I just uncovered it, protected it, and waited. There's a difference. Last time I drove past the old Arkwell building wasn't even on purpose. I noticed the logo on the glass had been updated. Same name, but it looked a little unsure, like the company was still trying to figure out who it really was. I thought about those 11 faces in the conference room, the flickering light, the guy pointing at me like furniture. And then I thought about Candace waiting across the street, Phil building his binder, Tessa keeping her records, all the truth quietly gathering in places Marcus never bothered to look. I drove home. My daughter was out on the porch drawing again, lost in her own little world. I sat in the car a minute, just watching her. Leave the settling to God and the truth. Grandma, you had no idea how right you were.